Welcome to First Unitarian Church of Orlando. I'm Elizabeth Horn, a member of this congregation and the worship team here at 1U. With me in today's service are our affiliated minister, Reverend Kierstin Homblette-Allen, and our director of music, Aubrey Connelly-Candelario. Reverend Margalie Belizaire is on leave. And let's not forget our teams of wonderful people in the background working diligently to ensure that we come together this morning. So thank you. Yeah, we can clap for that. Today, children will go to their summer fun activities when we sing them out after the time for all ages. The nursery is open until noon, and youth are invited to remain in the sanctuary for the worship service. We greet you this morning, old friends and new ones, as we explore our Unitarian Universalist faith, which draws us into a community of justice seekers with a commitment to lifelong spiritual growth and compassionate service to the community. As a Unitarian Universalist congregation, we are a non-creedal community that does not subscribe to a specific set of beliefs. We live by a covenant that encourages ethical behavior, affirms democracy, celebrates the worth of each individual, and unites us in a search for truth and meaning. Whether today is your first or your 1,000th Sunday in our midst, you are welcome here. Whoever you are, whoever you love, you are welcome here. In this community, your whole self is welcome. We welcome your race, national origin, immigration status, gender identity, sexual orientation, age, physical or mental abilities, economic status, or religious background. We welcome you. For more information about our congregation and announcements, please go to orlandouu.org or email info@orlandouu.org. We have one special announcement today from Religious Education. During coffee hour, the Religious Education Committee will have information about the upcoming program year available. Before we start registering for classes, we are looking for folks who might be interested in teaching. Please drop by the table and see what is there. All other announcements are on slides before and after the service and have links in the weekly update or on our website. If you would like to follow along to the service, please use the QR code shown in the monitor and on the first few slides. Thank you again for being here in person and online today.
Please say the words with me as we light the chalice. In the light of truth and in the warmth of love, we gather to seek, to sustain, and to share.
Please rise in body or spirit and join me in singing our opening hymn, When Our Heart is in a Holy Place, number 1008 in our teal hymnal. The words will appear on the screen.
When we trust the wisdom
Good morning. Before we begin this morning, I would like to offer a brief prayer. This moment in our collective life is so fraught with anxiety, pain, fear, and confusion. I give thanks for the opportunity this morning for us all to pause, to stop, to ponder, to breathe, to center ourselves, maybe with our feet grounded on the floor, to rest for a moment held in community, rooted in the knowledge that we are deeply loved. Spirit of life, of love, of ancestors who moved mountains, we come to you today in prayer. We bear witness to yet another act of violence in our very violent world. We pray for all of those who are in harm's way. We know that as universalists, what happens to one of us happens to all of us. And we are collectively tired. We are in pain. We are dying senselessly with no end in sight. But we have something special to hold on to. Our Unitarian Universalist tradition is rooted in the values of human dignity, justice, compassion, and democratic principles. We remain vigilant in our commitment to protecting our democracy and the integrity of its principles and the rights of all of its people. Help us to keep love at the center. Help us to lean on each other, knowing we are in this together. Help us to continue to speak out against violence of any kind. Lead us to the next right thing, the next act of love. Make us instruments of a just and lasting peace. Be with us as we are here with each other. We pray together in community. Amen. Our worship service this morning is focused on reproductive justice, on bodily autonomy, and on liberation for everybody and every body. This is a topic that is not commonly the focus of worship services, even in our own Unitarian Universalist tradition. Issues of sexuality and reproduction are sometimes considered very private and personal. I want to say before we begin that this topic may be especially challenging for some of us, depending on our own personal, familial, or collective histories. Please take care of yourself as you need to. It's perfectly okay to take a break, to turn off your audio for a bit, to walk away or tune out. We will know that you are doing what's best for your needs. Even though we don't address these issues often in church, I think it's very important to acknowledge, explore, and hold all of the realities of our lives in a place like this, where we are committed to caring for each other's spirits and journeying with each other. All that being said, I finally arrive at our call to worship this morning, adapted from the words of the Reverend Dr. Rebecca Parker. In the midst of a world marked by tragedy and beauty, there must be those who bear witness against unnecessary destruction, and who, with faith, rise and lead in freedom, with grace and power. There must be those who speak honestly and do not avoid seeing what must be seen of sorrow and outrage, of tenderness and wonder. There must be those whose grief troubles the water while their voices sing and speak refreshed words. There must be those whose exuberance rises with lovely energy that articulates earth's joys. There must be those who are restless for respectful and loving companionship among human beings, whose presence invites people to be themselves without fear. There must be those who gather with the congregation of remembrance and compassion, draw waters from old wells, and walk the simple path of love for neighbor. And there must be communities of people who seek to do justice, love kindness, and walk humbly with God, who call on the strength of soul force, of the spirit of life, of the love at our center, to heal, transform, and bless life. Come, my community, let us worship together. And in that spirit of togetherness, I'll ask you to take a moment to greet each other.
Children, youth, young in heart, who would like to join me down on the carpet for Time for All Ages. Hello, hello, good morning. Oh, we brought stuffy friends with us. Hello. Come on down. So for today's service, we're going to be talking about bodies and how our bodies are sacred and our bodies belong to us. So to go along with that theme, we have this book called Yes, No, A First Conversation About Consent by Megan Madison, Jessica Rowley, and Isabel Roxas. This is my body. It belongs to me. I am the boss of my body. I like doing things that feel good. So I'd love to hear from you all. I really love to go hiking with my body. What are things?
Like running or doing scooter walks with my dad.
Running, or what was the other thing? Scooter walking.
But I'm doing my bike.
And bike, so many things. Painting and dancing, yeah.
I love painting and dancing.
Painting and dancing too. Catching butterflies. And reading books. Oh, our mind is a part of our body too. Acting. Painting and riding your bike. It doesn't always feel like I'm the boss of my body. My grown-ups make some choices for me because it's their job to keep me safe and healthy. I feel like my kids have heard that before. What are choices that grown-ups might make for your body to keep you safe and healthy?
Scrubbing and brushing my hair.
Brushing your hair, ponytail. Any others you can think of? Look at this, helmets. Sometimes I don't like the choices grown-ups make for me, and I feel upset. It feels better when grown-ups ask first, or when they let me know what's happening and why. So we have a picture of grown-ups and a kid wearing helmets, and it says, we're all putting on our helmets to keep safe. Everyone is different. Some people love hugs. Some people would rather blow a kiss. Some people love to get dressed, others would rather be naked. People like and want different things at different times. Do you sometimes like hugs?
I love hugs all the time.
Hugs all the time, okay.
My dad will go when he goes to bed, and my mom kisses me all the time.
I love hugs always, especially for people I ask as long as
Mommy, wait.
We heard hugs from people I trust and hugs when I'm feeling sad.
I usually like hugs, just sometimes where I can't really have one, and if I don't trust the person.
Yeah, sometimes when we don't want a hug. Yeah. Yeah, if we don't want a hug, if we're not in the mood, or if it's someone we don't know or trust, absolutely. The only way to know what someone wants or likes to do is to ask. Asking if something is okay with someone is called asking for their consent. When we ask someone for consent, they might say yes or no. So we have here someone saying tickle monster, and the kid is saying no. Can I pick you up? And the kid is saying yes. If someone says yes, it means you have their consent. And here's where I need all of your help. Can you practice saying yes with me? 1, 2, 3, go. Yes. We can all do that. 1, 2, 3, go. Yes. That's fun. But if they don't say yes, the answer is no. Here we go. Can we all practice saying no together? 1, 2, 3, go. No. When someone says or shows no, it's our job to listen and stop right away. There are lots of ways that people say no when they don't want to do something, so we need to pay extra attention. So I wonder if any of my readers here might take one of these speech bubbles. What are other ways that we might say no? Just shout one out, Anne.
Stop.
Okay. What other ones do you see? What do you see?
Maybe later.
Maybe later. Yeah.
I don't like that.
I don't like that.
Not today.
Not today. What do you see? Go ahead, Molly. Not really. Yeah.
Stop.
Stop. Yeah, so many ways. Do you see one, Nolan? Go ahead, Nolan. Stop. Yep. There are lots of ways people show no, too. A no can be a sound. It can even be silent. So let's look at this picture. What are ways that you see that someone is showing no with their face or their body? Can you find any? What about, go ahead. What do you see?
I just see this one.
Oh, how do we know that's a no?
Because it's saying wow.
Wah, crying. What do you see there?
She's taking.
Yeah, the arms. How about you, Malia? They're hiding behind their grown-up. Yeah.
That kid is looking away. Silent treatment.
Arms crossed and turned away. Do you see one more? Her face, yeah. Sometimes a yes can change into a no. Everyone is allowed to change their mind. So here we have a picture. They're having fun playing, and then what do you see in this picture? So even if you're having fun, you can change your mind. Yep. It's okay if you hurt someone's feelings when you say no. What you want for your own body matters. And it's okay if your feelings get hurt when someone says no to you. What they want for their own body matters too. Sometimes it's hard to say or show no. Grown-ups can help you say no or help you make a different choice. So we have some grown-ups here helping. Say, would you rather blow a kiss? Do you want a hug or a high five? We all have the right to make choices about our bodies. Whether the answer is no or yes, consent feels so good. All right, so that's the end of our time for all ages. I'm going to invite these grown-ups to form a loving arch as we sing our youth out with this little light of mine.
Good morning. I'm Greg Buckingham, member of the Board of Trustees. And I want to say this is the Sunday we have conversations with the board. I will be in the library area if you'd like to chat. I invite you now into the practice of generosity. It is one of our spiritual values which sustains the life and the ministries of this community. Let us be grateful for the opportunity to give, for it is a privilege to be able to do so. And let us be grateful for our needs, for they give us the opportunity to practice receiving. Our Share the Plate recipient for the month of July is the Legends Academy. Legends Academy provides a rich learning environment for children using the philosophy of teaching for understanding, which puts the student at the epicenter of the instructional and assessment plan. Their philosophy centers on the development of a culturally responsive and safe learning environment with the educational best practices of a K-8 school. Please give generously to support Legends Academy. Today's offering also supports the ministries of 1U. The offering will now be collected. Note that you can also give using the online link.
All this joy, all this sorrow, all this promise, all this pain, such is life. Such is being, such is spirit, such is love, city of joy, city of sorrow, city of promise, city of pain, such is life, such is being, such is spirit, such is love, a world of joy, world of sorrow, world of promise, world of pain, such is life, such is being, such is spirit, such is love. All this joy, all this sorrow, all this promise, all this pain, such is life, such is being, such is spirit, such is love, such is spirit, such is love.
Thank you, Aubrey. Let us joyfully receive what is offered here today in the spirit of gratitude and fellowship.
This year marks the 20th anniversary of the March for Women's Lives on the Mall in Washington, D.C. Woo! Yeah! More than 1 million people came together that day to witness for the rights of women and all people to safely access abortion and contraception, as well as other forms of life-saving reproductive health care. I remember my own sense of awe, joy, love, and gratitude as I marched along the route with my mom, who was at her very first big protest. Yeah, and with our very own 1U lifelong activist, Jean Siegfried, and thousands of other Unitarian Universalists who had traveled from all over to be there in this crowd. Were others of you there that day? Yes, Ellen, yes, Charlotte, amazing. Our Unitarian Universalist Association president at the time, the Reverend Bill Sinkford, was there marching, and so was our current president, the Reverend Dr. Sophia Betancourt. We all wore our matching teal t-shirts, which were the precursor to our now notorious marigold yellow t-shirts. We carried signs proclaiming our belief in the agency of women, the sacred nature of choice, the right to bodily autonomy. We chanted and drummed and sang hymns and laughed together and walked for miles, a river of humanity streaming across our nation's capital, powerful and determined. We had begun that morning at All Souls Church, a Unitarian congregation just a couple miles down the street from the White House, with a worship service to ground us. The Reverend Dr. Rebecca Parker was preaching, then the president of our Unitarian Universalist seminary in California called Star King. In her sermon entitled "For All That Is Our Life," she said, "Why does it matter that people's reproductive choices be protected? Because we live in a broken world where life is at risk in so many ways. The power to choose is the power of life in the midst of brokenness. Without choice, tragedy, impasse, and despair are the last word. With choice, creativity, responsibility, and possibility enter the conversation. With choice, human beings enter into fuller personhood, becoming creative agents in the world who can transform life in the direction of greater justice, safety, and joy. A society in which human beings accept that life and death are in their hands is a better society." Embracing creativity and responsibility is a spiritual value that applies beyond questions of pregnancy and childbirth. To know that we have a choice is to know that life is not predetermined, that we do not simply have to comply with established structures, rote patterns, or the dictates of despair. It is to know that we are not helpless in the face of overwhelming events. We all need the spiritual knowledge that life and death are in our hands, and we all need to do the hard work of ethical discernment, of accepting that life and death are ours to choose. Why should we march to keep abortion safe and legal? Because where there is choice, there is life. Where there is life, there is hope. And where there is hope, we find ourselves holding bundles of joy in our arms. Each of us bears in our own bodies the powers of holding on and of letting go. Hearing Reverend Dr. Parker preach this sermon was inspirational to me, to say the least, both in that moment as we marched to the metro, sung on the metro, marched out of the metro to the march, and also to my own call to ministry several years later. And yet today, I find myself despairing at how relevant her words are still. 20 years hence, we still live in a broken world where life is at risk. The power to choose is even further away from most of us, especially here in Florida. We were marching then to keep abortion safe and legal, and here we are now where it is neither of those things. Where so many choices have been made so much more difficult or eliminated entirely, depending on your identity, your class, your economic situation. Not only about abortion, but about a whole constellation of issues related to body, sexuality, autonomy, family, and even day-to-day survival. How do we continue to march, to fight, to push forward for change when it feels like we've only gone backwards since that time? One thing that I place my hope in is the resiliency and wisdom of those who have been in this fight for a long time. Some of you in this room. There were people at that march with me back in 2004 who have also marched for that very same thing in the very same location in 1992, and in 1989, and 1986, and 1978, and 1970. There were many signs that day in 2004 that said some version of, "I can't believe we still have to protest this shit." People were and are dedicated to showing up and working hard for what they believe is right, no matter how long it takes, no matter how frustrating it is, no matter the risks. It's beautiful and inspiring and a powerful spiritual discipline to learn from. And yet, here we are in 2024. I can't believe we still have to protest this shit. It's devastating, and I'm not going to sugarcoat it for us. How am I bringing my young children up in a world where they have fewer rights to control their own bodies and make choices that are best for them than I did growing up? I know that there are so many longtime activists, wise elders, some here in our own congregation, who are deeply grieving the overturning of Roe versus Wade, in part because they thought they really were done fighting for that particular justice issue. It's very painful. But I also know that their efforts, that our collective efforts, have not been in vain. The world is different than it was in 1973 or 2004. And some things really are a lot better for women and for people of all genders. We have them to thank for so much, and also to learn from now as we find ourselves protesting this particular shit again. Through the efforts of our movement and spiritual elders, I believe that our wider culture has become much more open to talking about issues of sexuality, gender, and reproduction, more accepting of diversity and difference. In some ways, these pieces of our lives that were seen by many as very personal and to be kept hidden are now more openly acknowledged, accepted, even celebrated. We see this in the success of the LGBTQIA movement as more and more people are willing to come out and be proud about their gender and/or their sexuality. We see this in mainstream media, the way it portrays relationships and major life events. Lots of progress still to be made, of course. We even see this in some families where there's less body shame. We're willing to talk about puberty, the birthing process. We talk to our children about consent, as Elizabeth did so beautifully this morning. Our Unitarian Universalist congregations have played a role in this change, offering comprehensive, progressive, values-based sexuality education for our children and people of all ages, initially through a class called About Your Sexuality, which I took here at 1U when I was in middle school, and more recently through the Our Whole Lives program, also known as OWL. And there's also plenty to be done here amongst us. To be successful and to have integrity, our focus can not only about be changing other people and policies somewhere else out there. We are all products of this broken culture, and every one of us has learning and healing to do. Even in our congregations, people are hesitant to discuss their issues of reproduction openly or with their clergy. There may not be the same fear of judgment that there would be in more conservative religious communities, but our shame-intensive culture has been very successful at encouraging most everyone to suppress their emotional and spiritual needs related to sexual and reproductive experiences. The result is that the vast majority of people in our country, including many in our congregations, navigate incredibly challenging situations with little to no support from their spiritual leaders or community. I have been a Unitarian Universalist all my life, and I cannot recall one single time hearing someone grieve their miscarriage or share news about their struggle with infertility during Joys and Concerns. I know many people in my life who've had an abortion, and it was not talked about openly at their church. Ending this cultural stigma requires proactive engagement. Dominant culture that goes unchallenged remains dominant. In order for people to feel comfortable bringing their whole selves, their whole lives to our congregation, we must invite and encourage it and be prepared to offer skilled, compassionate, relevant care when they do. I commit to being a part of that culture shift, and I hope that you will too. For while it's important that we march and witness and advocate out there, real changes start here. This is the time in our service that we set aside for the deep sharing of our hearts and for prayer and meditation. If you have a sorrow that you need witnessed or helped with, or have a joy that you wish to share, please contribute to our collective sharing of joys and sorrows to be read each Sunday during worship. You can send an email to joysandsorrows@orlandouu.org during the week. If you are attending in person, you can also fill out a card at the registration table before the service and hand it to an usher before the start. And after our ritual today, we will call you forward to participate in some candle lighting. Bring your joys and your sorrows as we come together. Come as you are. Your whole self is welcome in our sacred space we create together. Today's flowers back here were brought by Joan and Jim Irwin in honor of Ann Patton's birthday this very day, July 14th. Happy birthday, Ann. From our own Reverend Margalie, I am doing well and recovering. My physical therapist refers to me as an overachiever. Who's surprised about that? Who am I to contradict him in this instance? Anyway, I wanted to send this note of joy and gratitude to all of you for your well wishes via notes, cards, emails, books, other reading materials, flowers, offers of nourishment for body, heart, and mind, and for your visits. I'm thankful and grateful to have landed here at 1U as your spiritual leader, especially in times such as these. May we always show up for one another. And from Emmy Collins, following my crazy full steam ahead launch into a downtown sidewalk on July 4th, this community has been super supportive. Thanks for the visits, flowers, cards, and texts. I hope to see you all in person next week, assuming by then I can comfortably get dressed again. And from Charles and Aubrey, Our son is visiting us today from Washington State. Yay! But he leaves to go back on Tuesday. Boo. Safe travels. We continue to hold families here in Orlando, around our state, nation, and the world with care and compassion by acting for justice in small and large ways that will bend the arc of the universe towards justice. For all of the joys and sorrows of this community shared today, and for those held close to our hearts, let us pray, celebrate, and send each other healing energy. This sanctuary that we create together is a container for all our stories, the ones we share and the ones we hold close and quiet in our hearts, the stories that bring us joy and fulfillment and the stories that break us open, the stories that change and grow with us and the stories we outgrow and leave behind. Each and every one of you carries a lifetime of stories every time you enter this space. This morning, there may be stories from your life that surface in unexpected ways. I would like to invite you into a small ritual to hold space for your story, whatever it may be. And if you do need support after this service, please do not hesitate to reach out to me. As Elizabeth lights a series of candles for the different paths our lives have taken, if you recognize yourself in one of these prayers, I invite you to put your hand over your heart. Whether you're here in our space or at home or watching online, know that you are not alone. There's someone else in this gathered community holding their hand over their heart, too. We light the first candle for those whose story includes the choice to end a pregnancy. The circumstances vary, the timelines of our lives are diverse, but each and every end is also a beginning. And so we light this candle for all those who have aborted a pregnancy or partnered someone through an abortion for whatever reason, under whatever circumstance. May the beginnings and endings in our story be held in unconditional love and acceptance. We light the second candle for those whose story includes the unwanted loss of a pregnancy or a struggle with fertility. The circumstances vary, the timelines of our life are diverse, but the pain of infertility, miscarriage, and stillbirth are still too often held in silence. And so we light this candle for all those who have traveled this path of loss for whatever reason, under whatever circumstances. May the beginnings and endings of our stories be held in unconditional love and acceptance. We light the third candle for those whose stories include the choice to give birth. The circumstances vary, the timelines of our life are diverse, but the choice to bring a new life into the world is a powerful one. And so we light this candle for all those who have given birth, partnered in the birth of a child, or adopted a child birthed by someone else, for whatever reason, under whatever circumstance. May the beginnings and endings of our stories be held in unconditional love and acceptance. We light the fourth candle for those whose story includes the choice not to conceive or have children. The circumstances vary, the timelines of our lives are diverse, but the freedom to chart the course of our own reproductive life is sacred. We light this candle for all those who've made the decision not to conceive or bear children for whatever reason, under whatever circumstance. May the beginnings and endings in our stories be held in unconditional love and acceptance. We light the 5th candle for those whose stories include a forced choice or no choice at all, or who have encountered violence where there should have been tenderness and care. The circumstances vary, the timelines of our lives are diverse, but not everyone has been in the position to control their own reproductive lives. We light this candle for all those who found themselves unable to exercise their own sacred reproductive freedom for whatever reason, under whatever circumstance. May the beginnings and endings in our stories be held in unconditional love and acceptance. We light the 6th and final candle for those whose reproductive story is still being written. The circumstances vary, the timelines of our lives are diverse, but the future unfolds in surprising and unexpected ways that can be both beautiful and heartbreaking. And so we light this candle for all of those who are at the threshold, who have agency and choices still to make about their reproductive lives, in the hopes that that agency and choice remains, for whatever reason, under whatever circumstance. May the beginnings and endings in our stories be held in unconditional love and acceptance. May the flames of these candles and the many stories they represent remind us of the fire of commitment we each carry inside to ensure that all people have choice, freedom, and agency over their reproductive lives, and that reproductive justice is upheld as a fundamental right for this and future generations. And now you are invited to come forward this morning and light a candle of your own, perhaps one of remembrance, loving kindness, or hope. Our first candle in this section will be lit to recognize the joys and sorrows of our online friends, and the last candle to recognize the unspoken joys and sorrows in this room. Please come.
are the stirrings of compassion, though in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.
I'm very moved and so grateful that you engaged that ritual with me, something that I needed in my life, and I hope it held meaning for you too. I could feel very tangibly our shared commitment to bringing our stories of reproductive endings and beginnings into this space and our collective care. I have also felt tangibly over the past few months our shared commitment to action. Many of you have showed up at our monthly Super Saturday events we're hosting here for the Yes on 4 campaign, pushing through your discomfort and nerves to phone bank or door knock or reach out to your friends and family in support of Amendment 4, which is Florida's November ballot initiative to restore abortion access and enshrine it in our state constitution. In addition to spiritual and pastoral engagement here and external action out there, we also need to work to bring an overlying intersectional lens to all of our reproductive justice. This shift has been happening slowly in the mainstream movement, from a framework centered in white feminism and a narrow focus on reproductive freedom and choice, to a broader framework of reproductive justice. I didn't know this at the time, but at that March for Women's Lives in 2004, the march was originally named the March for Freedom, but it was renamed in an effort to expand the message to include the right to have children, access to pre- and postnatal care, sex education, and other issues that were not always as accessible for women of color as white women. This change was hard-won because it was 10 years before that even, in 1994, that 12 Black women developed the reproductive justice framework, recognizing the call to lead a national movement to uplift the needs of the most marginalized people, families, and communities. The reproductive justice movement was founded at a time when the unique range of issues faced by many women of color were not addressed in the predominantly white, middle-class women's rights and reproductive rights movement, nor the predominantly male civil rights movement. The framework combines reproductive rights, social justice, and human rights through the lens of Black feminism. Reproductive justice is defined by 4 tenets: the human right to maintain personal bodily autonomy, the human right to have children, the human right not to have children, and the human right to parent the children we have in safe and sustainable communities. This framework called for action on a broad spectrum of justice issues that all fall under this larger umbrella of reproductive justice. Reproductive justice is about access, not about choice. Mainstream movements for a long time have focused on keeping abortion legal as an individual choice, and that is necessary but not enough, because even when abortion is legal, many women, particularly women of color, particularly low-income women, particularly queer women, cannot afford it, cannot travel hundreds of miles to the nearest clinic if they're in a state where there are not many. There is no choice when there is no access, even if abortion is legal. The reproductive justice movement envisions the liberation of all people, all genders, sexual orientations, abilities, ages, classes, cultural and racial identities. And when we utilize this expanded framework, we can see so many more possibilities for our own action and witness here at 1U. The framework of reproductive justice ties together our efforts related to gender-affirming care for trans children and adults with our support for unhoused people through iDignity. It means that we need to join efforts to support paid maternity leave, health insurance for all children, Medicaid expansion in our state, and a living wage. It requires that we consider issues of race and racism as they intersect with all of our other justice commitments. And it means that not only should we be organizing to pass Amendment 4 in November, but that we also continue to fight to eliminate barriers to that access after it passes, whether they be financial, logistical, spiritual, or legal. I was talking to a friend of mine recently who was part of passing the amendment in Ohio last year, and she said that so many people worked towards the passage of that amendment, and then when it passed, done with that, on to the next thing, and abortion funds in that state were running dry because people were not donating anymore because they thought it was settled. As poet and activist Audre Lorde said, "There's no such thing as a single-issue struggle because we do not lead single-issue lives." Instead, we are acknowledging complexity, honoring diversity, and learning from our elders and from our youth, who are way ahead of us on most of this. We are dreaming ourselves into the future, fighting like revolutionaries. Our vision is a future rooted in human dignity and worth, bodily autonomy, joy, love, and rest. Reproductive justice is our framework, intersectionality is our lens, and collective liberation is the goal. And would you rise in body and spirit and join me in singing our closing hymn, number 354, We Laugh, We Cry. The words will be on the screen. Our closing words come from poet and UU minister, the Reverend Julian Jamaica Soto, entitled, "To the People Who Have Mistaken Freedom for Liberation." To be free, you must embrace the breadth of your own existence without apology, even if they try to take it from you. You must know, not that you can do whatever you want. You are not a kudzu vine eating entire hillsides for the purpose of feeding your own lush life. You must know instead that inside you are entire universes, milky blue, magenta, and gold, expanding. But to actually be free, you must know and you must fight for the entire universes inside of everyone else. Being free is not a license, but a promise. I feel like you know what I'm going to say about this call to action, but I'm going to say it anyway. Our call to action this morning is manyfold, but also simple. I call on each of us to find a way to make real the world we dream about, to find ways to fight for the entire universes inside of everyone else. There are lots of opportunities to do this, so many here in our beautiful broken state. And I will name two that are coming related to our commitment to reproductive justice and our shared work to pass Amendment 4. First, I invite you to join us next Saturday morning as our congregation hosts the next Super Saturday here in Gore Hall. These are an opportunity to take direct action to reinstate legal abortion access here in Florida. It can be intimidating for some to make phone calls or knock on doors, but there are lots of ways to plug in, and what better way to do something vulnerable or that scares you than in your beloved community. You can check the weekly update or contact me for details and to sign up. Secondly, I invite you to personally consider what intersectional action you can take to support reproductive justice beyond abortion. What moves, large or small, can you make today to help ensure reproductive liberation for everybody and every body? Now is the time for action, friends. Do what you can now so that you can rest in the knowledge that you did everything you could, no matter the outcome.
Please say these words with me as we extinguish this flame. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.